You're now listening to the Thousand Story Podcast, presented by Thousand Story. Welcome to the Thousand Story Podcast. We are your hosts, Naji
and Luis.
And today is a conversation about doing and being and doing and being, otherwise known as doobie doobie doo.
It's a conversation about life.
It actually is.
And how to live it, really.
How to live it. So as freelancers, as creatives, anybody who does not work the traditional 9 to 5 and bears the responsibility of creating your own schedule and keeping yourself adhered to that schedule, knows the woes of doing that.
Creating your own schedule.
And how often difficult it is to stick to one schedule or even just make one.
I think the hardest part is so when you have a job, you're supposed to be somewhere at a specific time and someone's there to be like, are you doing your job?
Or you're fired.
Or do it right now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But when you're freelancing, you could do it whenever, which is a blessing and a curse.
It really is. It ultimately is.
It is.
And one of the biggest reasons why I wanted to talk about this is because I know from experience that, I am a workaholic. I have a habit of just focusing in and digging in until a thing is done. And I will not sleep or rest or, cause detriment to myself in other ways until I get this thing finished. And it's incredibly important to understand and really embody the concept of being and not doing and breathing and enjoying life outside of this passion. Because, with especially for people just making the switch over to full-time creativity or full-time freelancing, there's stress. It's a grind. It's constantly finding clients. It's constantly making sure you're not going to starve for the next week or month or year or whatever the case may be. So, there's obvious hesitancy to not doing things. But I think we've lost the level of understanding needed to realize its importance of just not doing things and being able to just recollect and go off and balance. There really is a lack of balance when you're first starting out, and it's hard to kind of figure out what your own balance is. There's so many ways to figure out what your own pattern is and what works for you, what works for your biological schedule. But also what works for other people in your life that you want around. It's so easy just to be like, I'm busy or I'm working, or prioritize and make a schedule that allows you to not see anybody. Because you could just disappear into your work if you want to. It's super easy to do it. So for me, I think it's important for creatives or 20-something entrepreneurs to understand the value of being, not only for the sake of just relaxing, but also because of the value that it imparts on you being able to create, and to actually accomplish the do. It's essential to be able to come back or just step back from your work and reflect upon it and actually, be able to observe what you've done rather than just constantly be in it.
It becomes so easy to really drain yourself of your own creative flow or your own juices, or really, because where a lot of creativity comes from is experiencing life.
Yes.
So if you're not experiencing life,
what are you doing?
Then what are you doing? Because that art and creative endeavors are really an extension of the things that you experience and how you live. And if you're just a hermit and you're working all the time, not going to new places or meeting new people or genuinely just relaxing for a moment and breathing,
It kind of brings that sense of life back to your work, back to your life. Yeah. But, it's also important because, I don't understand how people can't breathe, like, or like how people can just go endlessly. I mean, yeah, I do it myself, so I guess I should understand it, but I still don't. Like, I don't understand why there's this immense drive or importance to get things done immediately or get things done constantly.
I think that's part of our current, I don't want to say like predicament, you know, as far as our age group. You know what I mean? We're living in a world where everything is immediate. We're living in a world where nothing stops, really. There's no moment where people go home. You know what I mean? Like something is always being done, you know? Whether it's, you know, even here, like in New York's the city that never sleeps.
Right.
You know what I mean? There's people constantly doing things all the time, and it's easy to feel like you're falling behind.
Oh, so
you know, but I think one of the things that I've told myself is, you know, I try not to stress so much. Before I used to, I should say this, I used to stress a lot about, oh, I'm not doing enough right now, or I should be studying a lot more, or I should be working a lot harder than I currently am, you know? But everyone is on their own schedule. Everyone is on their own time, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, there are presidents that were 40 when they were presidents, and then there were presidents that were 70.
Right.
You know, and it's just everyone has their own schedule that they're kind of following and their own timeline. And I think it's one of the worst things that you can do is really stress yourself out about, oh, so-and-so is famous at 19 or like successful at 19 or something, you know, and I'm not. What am I doing with my life? That just adds more detriment to your work and to your own focus. It just really pulls you away.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. You know, I find that, especially in the music field or any sort of field where highly skilled field, I'll say, where, you know, like your skill is almost like a direct representation of yourself or what your work ethic would be like. You know, if you see somebody who's a skilled bassist, you know, they put in time and effort to that. And then you see somebody who's a skilled bassist at 12 and then you instantly feel this like, what am I doing with my life?
I should quit music now.
Like, oh God. And then you realize if you actually think about it, those children are living some of the most, not unfortunate lives. I'm not going to say unfortunate. Obviously, there's some fulfillment in doing it. Yeah. But one, oftentimes you have, I'm not going to say, again, this is not like, I'm not going to overgeneralize and say that, you know, all parents kind of like some sort of overarching agenda for their children. Right. But oftentimes you'll find that when you have a child at such a young age go into something that seriously, that passionately, that's usually the parents kind of, at that level, that's usually the parents kind of pushing some sort of need for excellence in them or something like that.
Well, living their like halcyon days, their golden days, you know, through their child.
Yeah, that's where you see like the little pageant girls or what was that? What was that one show?
Oh, with Honey Boo Boo?
Yeah, with Honey Boo Boo. Like that's a thing that exists and that's a problem.
It is.
You know, and that's like a huge, I guess, it's like a cautionary tale.
A cautionary tale.
Be careful to allow yourself, allow your children, allow your, you know, the space for being. Yeah, because you can lead yourself down that path so easily. But, you know, back to the point of, you know, kind of, you don't want to compare yourself to anybody other, like any other person's trajectory, especially in this field, because it's so easy. There are so many talented people in the industry. There's going to be people better than you at something. That's just gonna happen. So you can either stress about that fact and, you know, just be depressed for the entirety of your career because somebody's always going to one up you. People are always going to want more. People are always going to want something better. So somebody is always going to be better. It's just a fact.
I think it is like you said, kind of cautionary in a way, but also the beauty of the fields that we're in, you know, the creative fields, is that you have people that are doing vastly different things and you can't compare them. You can't compare yourself to another artist because you're not that other artist. You know what I mean? And it's you're making something completely different. And that's I don't know, not tailored to you, but, you know, custom. You're creating that, you know, and you're out of your experiences during your B phase. That you're doing and that you're creating, you know, and nobody else is doing that. And so I think we need to take more pride in that, you know, because it's so easy to get lost in oh man, so and so, wow, like that thing that they did was just amazing. It blew me out of the water. You know, what I mean? You never know. Those people could be thinking the exact same thing about you.
Oh, absolutely.
Just not saying anything.
You know what's funny is it's like when you start comparing yourself to other people, like for example, well, why would I choose to live in Erie? You know,
Yeah.
why would I choose to stay here rather than go to like New York or LA and do the grind? Never mind it being like busy cities or anything like that.
Right,
But
right.
like, why would I not put myself in a position of quote unquote success by being in the environment that I need to be in around other musicians and other, you know, opportunities, so to speak. But the reason why I'm here is because I know myself at this point and know that I need an environment where I can just be. You know, if you're in New York, one, it's dumb cheap to live in Erie.
Yeah.
And two, it's quiet. And we're fortunate enough to live in a space where we have the equipment and tools and the space to actually just work and
create.
And create. So I am always going to prioritize that. I was going to prioritize being able to do those things wherever that is. I don't need to be in New York or LA or wherever else to accomplish that. And, you know, for me, if I were to look at it objectively, this would be me getting comfortable. And it's not necessarily that I'm getting comfortable here. I'm here for a purpose. My purpose in Erie is to be able to just, you know, build up the following, build up the music, et cetera, et cetera. And it's a space that allows me to do and be at the same time. Those are my priorities when I'm choosing a place. If I was in New York, if I were in LA, I'm always going to be concerned. It's just stupid expensive.
Yeah.
And I'm always going to be concerned.
You have to. I mean, otherwise you're not surviving, because like the thing with living in cities like that is, yes, it can seem successful to live in New York. Like, oh, I live in New York City. I'm doing. Yeah, exactly. But then, you know, your rent is what? For what kind of space? You know what I mean?
For a closet.
For a closet. You know, and you're not even in the city. Like,
you're outside of it with like three other people who want you dead.
And then it's like, you know, when you think about like a practice space, like as a musician, you know, you need a spot where like you can play music loudly, or if you're going to play live at all, you know, and to do that with neighbors everywhere, you know, and just to have
possible.
Yeah, it's almost impossible.
So you got to get a studio.
And then you exactly, and that's
that
another,
costs money.
Exactly.
So it's like, why would I do all this just for the sake of what's supposed to happen or what I should be doing?
Yeah.
I'm like, no. Let me step back. Let me do what I need to do here and allow myself the space to be and just breathe. And I think that's been one of the most helpful things in furthering my career, in furthering anything that I do, because I allow myself that I prioritize that. I prioritize being in everything that I do, or at least I try to. As far as I'm not perfect, nobody is, but I try whenever I can to prioritize just being and existing. You know, that's why I like at the end of these episodes, at the end of the ads, you know, I try and make an effort to not do things or not type out or questions or mix a track or something like that. Even though I want to so badly, and oftentimes I will. Oftentimes I won't too, because I need to be able to just relax. I need to be able to just
shut down for a second.
Shut down and actually just take a moment to absorb what happened that day. Like we get a lot done during the day.
Oh,
we don't realize it. And it's just it's important to just notice that, because otherwise you'll just constantly feel like you're never doing enough.
You're always playing catch up.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's and in a sense, I mean, I don't want to say you are, but like the world never sleeps.
Right.
So people are always doing something. And, you know, the thing is, what New York is or LA is, you know, what, 6 hours behind, 3 hours behind?
3 hours behind.
3 hours behind? I don't know why I said 6. I was thinking Spain. I don't know
Spain.
why. But anyway, LA is 3 hours behind, and they're still doing stuff. I mean, you know what I mean? Just because they're a few hours behind doesn't make them less productive or anything like that. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I know it's a weird thing to say, but like, in all reality, we're all doing things at all points in time. So taking a breather for a moment is not going to kill you.
Right. Like,
it's not going to stop you from doing work later on.
You know what's funny is that I think LA, I would actually never live in LA.
I couldn't.
But for me, they have that B mentality. They really do.
Just only B.
A lot of times people have that just B mentality.
Maybe I should go to LA then.
I mean, it's kind of weird. Like a lot of people just like the mentality there is very lax, and you know it's good.
It's interesting because New York is very do.
It's a very different mentality. That's why you can have such differing opinions and personalities from West Coast, East Coast. It's a very different headspace. It's a very different, living space. But LA was fun. I definitely liked going there just to I got a bunch of work done. I was literally in a studio every day, but then I also had time to just relax and hike and explore nature. And that was like, for me, that was a really, really nice balance. I was in, woods for, half of my time there. So it was really nice.
It was a good recharge.
Yeah,
definitely.
Even though I was exhausted, it still was refreshing in that sense. It was a moment to just enjoy where I was.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think more people need to, or more of us need to remember to find, obviously you don't have to go off to LA if you can't afford a ticket or something like that. I'm not saying, just be wanton and spend gluttonous amounts of money just to be but no, take a moment, find ways to kind of find something you enjoy and just enjoy it, take an hour, read a book, go to a park, something.
I think one of the things that has always stuck with me is in Twin Peaks, the show, there's this line that I'm pretty sure it's like Agent Cooper, the main character, says, but he says take one moment every day to just kind of surprise yourself in a way. Give yourself a gift.
I like that.
You know what I mean? And just surprise yourself. Like it could be something as small as like having a cup of coffee or going for a walk or just something that like kind of takes you out of your normal routine and just makes you kind of notice life for a moment. You know what I mean? It makes you stop, smell the roses type thing. What do you consider success? When you think of the word success,
so
what pops up?
That's a good question. My definition of that has changed immensely. Originally,
I think it's an important conversation.
It's a very important conversation, especially in the whole doobie context.
Yeah.
So originally, I can't date back to my first version of success. I don't really know what it was, but as far back as I can remember, 1998. As far back as I can remember, I always considered success, being successful or like, having money, having the house, having, be able to just thrive, et cetera, et cetera. And those are things that successful people have, sure. But for me, the definition has changed over time because the priority has changed. So success to me now would be, doing small things successfully every day. Basically being successful to me is not just, it's not monetary necessarily. It's not some external goal. It's finding a sense of accomplishment and a sense of, progress every day. Right. Finding some small thing to do, even if it's like, I'll write out like 5 or 6 things on my whiteboard, even if they're just meaning like brush your teeth or,
clean the dishes,
but I always put like maybe like 1 or 2 important things on there that need to happen that week. And if I can clear out those 4 or 5 menial things, it kind of, for some reason, you kind of trick your brain into thinking that you've accomplished something grand. Because you just seen the check marks.
Like, make your bed. Like,
I just did all that. Like, yo. And the thing is, with that, doing that every day, you find that you feel more successful because you are successful. You're successfully accomplishing tasks. You're successfully accomplishing what you set out to do for that day. And if you do that every day, I would consider that success. Whatever your goals are, as long as you are completing them successfully, that's success to me. Yeah. So if your goal is to make $1 million by the time you're 20, then for me, success would be, every day, saving up, maybe like finding a way to save $5 in your bank account, or just find a way not to spend it, or find a way to make $5, right? Or say, even if it wasn't money. So say your version of success was finding a way to conserve water in your town, right? How do you even go about that? The first thing you could do that day would be research it.
Exactly.
Figure out what you need or what communities already exist in your town. Yeah. And then every day communicate with some of those people. Yeah. Those are just small versions of success to me. It's not really tied to any one specific thing.
Thing. Yeah. I always really thought, because prior, I think like yourself, like when I was younger,
Yeah.
you used to think of like, oh, you have a lot of money and you got a nice car and you got a nice house and all this stuff. That's success, man. Like you've made it.
That's it.
You did it. You did it. That's it, you know? And I kind of started going down that path because I graduated college and I was just kind of getting into just working, you know, and the jobs that I had, like I made quite a bit of money from them.
Yeah.
And so I had all money and I kind of didn't really know what to do, you know?
He's like, I got money.
Because I'm like, oh, I got a bunch of money. Like, yeah, I'm successful. Like I can do stuff with it. You know what I mean?
Right.
And then you just spend it drinking or like something stupid because I don't know.
Just goes.
What else? Yeah. What else is there to do almost, you know? And I found after a while of just kind of doing that often and infrequently, I was like, I feel like maybe I'm just not happy, you know? And then I kind of started looking at my life and I was like, what's the point of having all of this money and doing all this stuff? You know what I mean? If none of it is making me myself like within me happy at all, if I just still hate going to work every single day or like, you know what I mean? Slaving away for like no apparent reason and all this stuff. And so for me, I had to drop that lifestyle and that comfortability to kind of just pursue my own passions, you know? And to me, I think that was when I was like, okay, so success to me means pursuing your own happiness.
Absolutely.
You know, like daily, day in and out. And I mean, like you'll have sad days and stuff. And it's definitely not that. But, you know, if you're not living your life, I guess, the way that you would want to, it's almost like, well, what's the point?
Absolutely.
You
And
know?
I think that, you know, we were going to talk about this later, you know, how happiness is the new form of productivity.
Yeah.
But more than just productivity, you know, happiness is so essential, you know, and how often we neglect it.
Yeah.
Again, going back to the doobie doo,
yeah.
you know, we say we got to do this thing so we can be happy,
Yes.
or you could just pause and be happy.
Be happy. Yeah.
You know, you can do,
Yeah.
but also remember to find ways to be happy.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't do that. They don't know you're allowed to do that.
Yeah.
You know, it's, you know, if you're starting a career, you're starting trying to gain a following.
Yeah.
You know, the grind is the respectable decision. You know, just doing and it's being seen doing those things that is supposed to bring you happiness because, you know, now people know I'm doing this thing. But what happens if it doesn't work out or if, you know, you go in a weird direction and all of a sudden you feel like you failed? Does that mean you were doing the wrong thing? No. But it just means that thing didn't work out. So you spent all that time kind of concerned with somebody else's representation or perception of it. And now you're feeling worse about something that you don't need to feel bad about.
Yeah.
You could just keep going, enjoy your time, enjoy the lessons that you learned and what you kind of built in that time and use that with something else.
Yeah, for sure. Because I personally, I think trying in and of itself is successful.
Absolutely.
I mean, because there are so many people that aren't doing that. So many people who are like, you know, tell you like when you're younger, like, oh man, I was, you know, really wish I could have done this when I was younger.
Right.
You know, but now I'm just working this job and da 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 da. You know?
Right. Or
not talking hate on any of those people.
No, you're right.
Because like it's circumstantial for sure. But you know, I definitely saw myself like 30, 40 years down the road. And I was just like, I don't want to say that. I don't want to be like, oh man,
like
I wish I could have tried.
Right.
You know, I wish I just could have, you know, and that's like a lot of people don't allow themselves to do that because of their fear of their meaning of success.
Mm-hmm. Which is for most people monetary.
Yeah.
So then that begs the question, you know, this is not a conversation to hate on monetary success or avoid it at all. You know, happiness can be monetary success.
Yeah.
It's not what the takeaway from this is. It's that, you know, you have to understand and allow yourself to, you know, accept your own happiness or accept your own form of it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you really want to get that money, that's something that drives you. Go for it, bro.
Yeah.
Like, but if you really, really want to just sit there and make art, find ways to make that happen.
Mm-hmm.
You know, don't let the society or anybody else tell you you shouldn't do that or, you know, you're not going to have enough time or enough money to enjoy the other things you want to enjoy. Enjoy what you want to enjoy in the moment. Like, we're here for a finite amount of time. Use it happily, use it, enjoying your life and helping others enjoy life if you want to. But it's mind-boggling how many people forget that you can be happy.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, obviously you might be wondering, or whoever listening, like, how do you actually implement this kind of
methodology,
methodology of do, be, do? Like, how do you make that a priority when you have bills to pay, when you have kids to feed, et cetera, et cetera? And it's very doable because there is no one single one. There's never a single way to do anything, but there's no maximum or minimum amount of doing or being that you have to do. Everything is modular and customizable to your schedule and your needs.
Right.
So even in the midst of having, 3 kids to feed and 2 jobs to take care of, you can find 5 minutes in a day to breathe or find meditation or read it.
Appreciate yourself.
Appreciate yourself. There's several opportunities every day to be able to be. The problem is that we're so busy doing that we don't get to notice them or feel bad for noticing them or are told we can't notice them. You know what I mean?
I think that was one of the biggest things that was kind of hard for me to really like get into when trying to starting to do this method, I guess, is feeling bad for doing nothing for a moment.
That's going to take time to get over.
It took me time to just kind of be okay with like, well, I don't really feel like doing anything. Because when you don't feel like doing something, or you've gotten to the point where it's just like, I just can't, you're going to half-ass it.
Absolutely.
You're going to do a terrible job at it.
So bad.
So why not take a moment to recharge, catch your breath, and then go back at it,
Yeah, I think that would be, that's probably the most important information. So whenever you feel that urge to feel bad about where you're at, or like you just don't have that energy, listen to it and don't tell yourself, oh, I shouldn't be doing this. Be like, wow, I'm tired. I should listen to my body and take a moment to breathe. And obviously, I still have the motivation and desire to do this thing, but I can't do it yet. But when I do have the energy to do it, I'm going to be so ready and so hyped for it. And it'll get done exactly the way I want it to be. But I can't accomplish that right now. Yeah. And that's okay. That conversation, that dialogue is going to take time to build. Yeah. That's not something that happens in a day. But find small ways to start incorporating that dialogue into your habits. So, whether it's, you're working on an essay or something, do it. And instead of trying to just bang it out in one night, try to start a little earlier, right? Start a few days earlier and kind of do it in chunks rather than say, I'm just going to, just see what happens. And you could just see what happens and just free write. And that's great if you do that. Another good way is to kind of set yourself a timer, almost like maybe 20 minutes, maybe 30 minutes, maybe an hour, whatever your interval is. Set yourself a timer so you know that you can get a bunch of work stuff done in this amount of time. You can shut off the phone, shut off the laptop, or if you're using the laptop, shut off the Wi-Fi, I guess. But find a way to make that interval, which is just a dead focus interval. And then once you're done with that interval, give yourself 20 minutes to breathe, or 30 minutes to breathe even. And that may seem like a lot. Say if your interval to work is only 20 minutes and you give yourself 30 minutes of a break time, that may seem like a lot. And it might be, but the problem is that might be that for somebody else, but that might be what you need. That is something that you have to accept about yourself. Figure out what your interval is and figure out what you're okay with and what your body and what your mind requires to actually do good work.
There is actually something, which I'm sure you might have heard of before, but the Pomodoro method.
Oh,
so the Pomodoro method was created by this guy named Francesco Cirillo, and he basically so he was like studying for university tests and like cramming for exams or whatever, and he just kind of found that he kept getting distracted. When he was, this is my time to study, and he would study like hours on end. You know what I mean?
Right.
And wasn't able to really retain much because he wasn't focusing during the times that he was supposed to be studying, because he was just studying for like hours on end. And like, who can do that really? So he grabbed a kitchen timer and just set it for like 10 minutes. And he kind of did this doobie method, where he would focus on studying for like 10, 20 minutes at a time or whatever, and then reward himself with like a little break of like 5 minutes. So then, you know, now it's effectively called the Pomodoro, meaning the tomato method. But I've actually done that with other things in my life, like making music, for example. So I'll have a phase where I'll just, okay, so this will be like me creating with this specific instrument, and I'm just going to take 30 minutes, and whatever happens, happens. I'm just going to do it, you know? And then 5 minutes of just messing around with something else, you know, and just kind of like breaking my whole method up instead of just kind of aimlessly like going through.
Like make music.
Yeah.
Like, what does that mean?
What am I even doing? You know, like, yeah. So I found that even on a micro level or macro level, that you can definitely apply this, you know, to smaller instances. And also just life in general, you know? Yeah. I thought it was interesting.
Oh, it's absolutely interesting.
Yeah.
I think nowadays I kind of know myself enough. I don't really need to set timers and whatnot. But I have the opposite problem where, you know, I don't find myself being too much, but I guess it isn't the opposite problem. I tend to work too much. I tend to do a lot. And, you know, so I don't really have the problem of focusing. Like, I don't have an issue focusing on something. Like, that's never my concern. I'm never like, I need to go take a break or I'm like stressed. Like, I have to remember, I have to set time limits just so I don't like kill myself from overwork. Yeah. You know, so I'll tell myself, okay, you have 2 hours to get this done because you got a show to watch. Like, you know, like it's not because this needs to be done, but you need to stop doing it. You need to pause because you will burn yourself out. Yeah. And, you know, for me, I know that's my, you know, I have the capability to go work on hours on end, but I have to accept the fact that even though I can do that, it's detrimental to my health. So I have to, you know, take moments to just breathe and talk to some people or just, you know, just relax for a moment. And, you know, so for me, those intervals end up being like, I'll work for maybe like 4 or 5 hours at a time. Cause again, I have no issue just going in. Like,
yeah, I'm definitely a beer. I love being, you know, and I love existing and experiencing and mainly traveling. I love traveling a lot, you know? Yeah. And I find it, difficult to, I don't want to say difficult to like want to work on something,
right?
You know, but I think I end up getting distracted very easily from whatever task is at hand, you know, just because I think that there's so many other things, so many other cool things, you know, to do. And it's, I don't know.
Oh, that's good. I mean, I have I'm going to say like a similar difficulty in that, like when I am working, I can think of like 8 other things that I could be working on, or I can think of 8 other things that I could just not be doing. Or like I have like lists of shows or lists of songs I want to hear. Or like, I have a bunch of things that are running through my mind all the time. So I just have to like prioritize and like choose like 2 things to look at that day.
I think that really goes back to, I don't want to say like the wearing all the hats conversation, but no, it really does.
Absolutely.
You know,
and so going back to the doobie doo kind of thing, with me, you know, so once you start defining your limits on like a small scale, start defining them. I started defining them on a bigger scale. So I started increasing, like trying to apply it to every situation possible as far as my schedule went. So you know, when I'm working, I do like 4 or 5 hour chunks and then take the rest of the day off or something like that. Or now thinking on like a weekly scale, then I'll be like, okay, I know 4 out of these 7 days I'm going to be working. And those 3 days, even though it's 3 days I could be working on something, I am doing nothing. Like I am dead to the world today. Yeah. Like, you know, and then I go on a bigger monthly scale. So I'm like, okay, I know I need these projects done this month. So I can spread this. I don't have to do all of this at the beginning of the month. Yeah. I can literally spread this out. Like I have the time to do this kind of intermittently throughout the month, and I can relax and breathe. And even through, like I said, just keep increasing it until I can find ways to kind of incorporate the doobie doo. Oh yeah, everywhere. So I'm constantly.
I mean, even if your doobie doo method is like, you know, like doing something like getting everything done at the beginning of the month, and then just being the rest of the month, I
that works too.
Like really, whatever is good for you.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
I think the reason why I have to go like intermittently is because, you know, I have that do issue where I work too much. And not even because I don't want to be, and because I genuinely want to be, but because I'm kind of a perfectionist and I will like obsess over a thing until it's done because I know it could be done. And that's hard to kind of like let go of.
That's hard on art sometimes too, because it's like it's just never perfect.
It's never perfect. It will never be perfect.
Yeah.
But you know, me, I'm like, I will get it as close to perfection as I can at this point in time. You know, that's just it's not a flaw. It's a curse and a blessing at the same time. But you know, it's one of those things that I have to keep in check, and I keep in check with the doobie method. You know, even saying that the doobie method, I can't even remember where I heard it. I think it was from this one quantum physicist randomly. It was in like this metaphysical documentary just about like the earth and what consciousness is or something like that. And I think his name was Dr. Amit Goswami or Goswami. I have to remember his name, but
Pastrami.
That's
terrible for me to say. I can't believe I just said that. It just popped in my head. I'm sorry.
Pastrami. It rhymes. It's catchy.
Sorry.
No, but you know, he was talking on kind of like a spiritual level about like doobie. But it kind of, from that point, I heard it like 5-6 years, maybe longer than that, way longer than that, actually, like almost 10 years ago, and it just kind of resonated with me. And you know, I just think it's important to even start embodying it on a spiritual, a mental level. You know, there are times where you can kind of do and be. Well, there are times where you can and do things to kind of better your happiness or better your mood or things. But then there's times where you have to just be and let sad emotions pass through.
Yeah.
Or like, you know, let things just kind of happen. And rather than like try and do something to fix them, right? Let them just come. Let them just flow through, experience them, and then you can let them pass through smoothly. So do even applies to me on that kind of mental, emotional level where if I have emotions that are really upsetting or really confusing, you know, just let the kind of experience them, sit in them for a minute. You don't have to dive too deep into them, but just let them be there. Yeah. And then continue doing and moving forward. But it's really, really helpful just to think about everything in that kind with that kind of mindset.
And I think life is really a lot of ebb and flow. I mean, it's a lot of tides. You know what I mean? It's a lot of just like going back and forth from thing to thing. And I think it's only natural to just try to, you know, live your life in a similar fashion. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, that is it for this episode. If you have any burning questions or topics you want us to talk about, you know, hit us up on the site at thousandstory.co/contact or follow us on Twitter and Instagram at thousandstory_. That's an actual underscore, not the word underscore. And if you want to know about our lives outside of the podcast, you can follow us on Twitter and Instagram as well. My handle is Mr. Naji Boy. That is MrNajiboi.
And I go by at L Pontillo. That is LPONTILLO on Instagram, and at Luis Pontillo. That's LUISPONTILLO on Twitter. And you can find that information on the website at thousandstory.co/podcast. Well, thanks for joining us, and join us next episode where we'll talk about Virginia and how it is truly the land of the virgins.
Well, also, shout out to you guys for reaching the end of the binge phase. Basically, we have made these, we're going to be making these podcasts in 2 different chunks. So the first chunk, the binge phase as I call it, is the first 8 episodes. But you'll see 8 more episodes coming out in the subsequent weeks. So stay tuned for that. Next episode will be about Ubering everywhere. Question mark?